About. Hi, folks. Good to see you guys. Glad you made it in. Some folks will pop in after we get going. But wanted to kind of wrap up some of our strengths pieces by doing a little bit of what I call, like a little live profiling. But first 30 minutes, I want to cover some live profiling. I'll go as long as you guys want on this. But I'd also like to hear questions or thoughts. Brendan and I were talking last week about what do you do with the information? Once you understand your profile, what do you do with it? How does that work? And so what I want you to be thinking about in the next 30 minutes, because I'll ask you guys to engage is, hey, this is where I'm finding that I'm using my StrengthsFinder themes, or this is what I'm wondering about how to use it, or I lead a team, or I don't lead a team, or I'm a creative. And, I want to hear from you if you have questions or thoughts or things that you've realized to be good for the group to hear, any ahas or takeaways you've had in the last, what is now, I think 8 weeks, ultimately, about how this plays out. Because what my real goal has been in this, during this time, ends up being, how do we operationalize this? How do we keep this focused in on something more than just a bunch of words? And so this morning, I'd like to take a profile. If I want somebody to give me their profile, I'm going to take that. And I want to just kind of walk you through a little bit of my process of what I do when I see a profile, so that you get a sense for, oh, so this is kind of how it breaks down. Because one thing to hear me talk about the themes individually, it's another thing to actually have a sense of, this is kind of like some of the thinking. And please, guys, ask questions. You ask live. I'm not going to cover content in that I've got to hit a certain piece, but I'd love you to understand. So who has a profile they'd like me to go through? Who wants to be brave?
They're all in the chat. Do you see some in the chat, Mike?
No, I can't see the chat right now because I just shared it over.
Oh.
What do we got?
Kate was first.
All right, Kate, give me Kate's list then.
Okay, or Kate can unmute. I don't know if she's.
Kate,
Hi there.
Kate. Hi, Kate. Okay. Give me your 5.
Individualization, empathy, connectedness, intellection, input.
Okay, we're going through one time. Individualization. Okay. What's next? Connectedness. Empathy. Okay.
Connectedness.
Okay.
Intellection. Input.
All right. So I'm meeting, I've met Kate before. We've known each other years and years ago, back in San Diego. Here's how this works. If I didn't meet her though, and I sat down and she's like, Mike, can we do a one-on-one and talk about your themes? I'm going to ask for the 5 at this point because I know her list. I typically don't read the profile documents. I've been doing this a long time, but it can be useful if you want to see those in advance, if you're ever coaching someone else. But when I look at this list, for me, the first things I kind of look to see is that which themes are the themes that are similar, that are clustered together in different areas. Thinking about the 4 domains, right? And again, as a reminder, executing, influencing, relating, strategic thinking. So I'm instantly looking at this. So individualization, empathy, connectedness, intellection, input. What do you guys see? Feel free to unmute, by the way, unless you have a barking dog in the back door somewhere. Feel free, if you guys can unmute. Somebody, what's the first things you notice about her profile?
The cluster of relationship building, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep, you've got a cluster relationship building, and what else do you have?
And then you have 2 strategic. So
yep. So you've got 2 clusters there, right? You've got individualization, connectedness, and empathy, okay, which is the first bucket, and we've got input and intellection. I myself don't pay as much attention to the order they come out as much as I care more about what's dominant. Gallup has different language. They would say they come out of the system in an order of capacity, but not dominant use. Like, meaning which ones resonate the most in my opinion, in my experience, the ones that resonate the most with you are the ones you fire first. So the point is of a one-on-one is to figure out of your 5, which 3 fire first, to use my language, which 3 fire first. But the only way to figure that out is to vet that with the person. So we're going to vet that with Kate, and hold your assumptions loosely, by the way. There's nothing more insane to me than talking to someone who's talking strengths, who goes, well, you're like this, and you're like this, and you're like this. No, they aren't. That is not how this works. You're going to find me saying a lot of times and using third person things like, well, you know what? I had an individualization person once say to me, you know, you may find it's true that, well, you know what? One time I was talking to someone with individualization the other day, and I'll grab hooks, which is usually true, by the way, to put it out there. So I'm not going to put Kate in a box and assume, well, I know, looking at this, definitely connectedness intellection must be her dominance. No, but we did talk about this the other day. So how do you hold your assumptions loosely? Okay. These are meant for people. And I've had people who I know are completely wrong and are blind to what I can see them behaving in ways they say aren't them. Not my job to convince them of that. Your job of using strengths for yourself and as well as with others is about going, how do I use the vocabulary to describe myself? So I want to help Kate figure out some of her dominance, individualization. So, and again, this is my process of how I'm thinking before I start asking questions. I'm looking at individualization, empathy, and connectedness first as a grouping. Connectedness, we know. So let's take this as a group. Individualization, empathy, and connectedness. Okay. So we know that connectedness is big picture. Okay. We know that empathy is about feeling feelings. It's going to be about, it's an emotional thermometer. So it's just pure emotional read. So it's the able to emotional reading of people. Okay. Connectedness, by the way, those big picture, cause and effect. It's patterns. Okay. Visualization, remember, is uniqueness. So then I look at it and I go, okay, we've got big picture, cause and effect. We've got emotional reading. She's reading kind of people's feelings, seeing their uniqueness. As I look at that, and does anything stand out to anybody? What thoughts at all? I used to have a coach, a friend, who would put him up on board and we'd be like, stick a probe in yourself and see what comes out of you. What's your gut say about those 3 themes now that you've seen them expanded? Think about it in terms of what might she be interested. So for me, I'm thinking to myself, what kind of things would catch Kate's attention? What would keep her interested? What might concern her? What might make her afraid? And so a simple framework I will do in my head is, what might be the questions that Kate would ask when she meets someone for the first time? Knowing this right here, what are kind of the things that you would expect Kate to say when she meets someone for the first time? Or, so there are always 2 scenarios, because I try to get thinkers and feelers. I say, if you met someone for the first time, or you had a new problem cross your desk, what would you wonder, worry, or be curious about? What do you think, Matt?
I was going to say, I don't know, the question of like, why are you the way that you are? Like, what makes you unique? Because there's the cause and effect, there's the being emotionally attuned to this person, and then obviously the like, why are they unique? So I could see her being really intrigued of somebody's story.
And how might she be exactly? So, and that's she's going to be intrigued with someone's story. And what might that look like? How would she, if she's a person who's interested in someone's unique story, how would she get to that story?
Well, I would say, oh, I'm sorry, are you still talking to Matt about that?
Give me your first gut, Matt, and then we'll go to Marcia.
I mean, it could look like a ton of questions, but a ton of strategic questions, like very
Mhm.
pointed with purpose. She knows exactly where she wants to go, and she can map specific questions to get there.
And did you get that just from individualization, or was there anything else that kind of told you she knows where she's going? What else told you?
I think connectedness. She can
Okay.
link things together, and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That could be great. Marcia, what do you think?
Well, I also feel that connectedness is also finding that connection with her. So she would ask questions in order to try to connect with her and kind of find that hook to really get to know somebody or herself better.
Because it sometimes can be about connecting to a thing. It's fun about finding patterns out there. It's also about connecting to yourself. And so that's really great, Matt. And thank you, Marcia. And so think of it. So the reason why, what's the next step is because think of it. Her individualization goes, I'm interested in the unique. Her connectedness is saying, I'm interested in how the unique is connected to other things. Okay. And so how are you going to figure that out? Well, she's likely then to do something. Is she going to leave that person and say, you're interesting, I'm going to go Google you now? No, she's going to ask questions. She's going to engage. She's going to potentially be curious if these are dominant for her. Now, if she has intellection dominant off the charts, if she has intellection input, she may never speak to anyone at all. Because she's like, who are you? I'm going to go research. Nice to meet you. I don't want to talk to you. But she doesn't just have those. See, having a theme does not mean that that's the dominance. She has a whole bunch of relational themes and thinking themes. So it totally changed. If I was woo positivity instead of communication command dominant, you guys would have a completely different experience. Yay, team. Yay. Let's just keep going. This is so fun. I love this. Like, instead of me going, I really hope they're learning something. Am I being clear enough? What's the next step? Because for me, it's a shift. So it depends upon your dominant pieces. And so for me, I would be asking Kate about things that are energizing for her. I want to hear about, hey, so talk to me about how you are when you meet new people, because I want to hear, does she talk about, I'm really drawn to people and their feelings, or does empathy simply become something that gets embedded in her understanding the uniqueness and connecting with other people? But then I want to know about the intellection input. Like, what does she do after she's met someone? Does she think about it? Does she journal about it? Does she take notes? Does she ever find that she's really mentally tired when she's finished because she has to go off and think about the people she met, even while she may be energized in the moment when she's with others? Because, and we know intellection is looking for core ideas, and input is gathering data. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Give me heads or not, Kate. And so in mix of this, so when I'm looking at this profile, I want to find out within the 5, which ones are most dominant. And so I'm going to ask Kate questions about all kinds of different things with regards to, I always go through the buckets of like relationship, energy, spending time, solving problems. I take basic pieces and I ask a question and then I listen. And so, Kate, what was the most energizing? Can we play live, Kate? Are you cool with that? Can
Yeah,
we play
for sure.
live right now? What was the most energizing thing you've done in the last 30 days?
Probably taken a new class.
Taking a new class?
Pennsylvania. It's a research class.
Nice. And, what was the topic? What's the class on?
It was how to do qualitative and quantitative research, like psychology research.
Nice. Why did you take it? Like, why that class?
I'm finally doing sort of what you've been talking about and realizing that just because my intellection and input themes aren't broadcasted to the world, those are actually my dominant themes. And for a long time, I thought that individualization and empathy were, because people reflected back to me what they saw, but they don't understand the depth of what's going on inside. Yes. And it's taken me a while to own that and to trust it.
Yeah. And so the research piece, so it's a class on research, but it's a class on research for psychology and human beings.
Yeah.
You guys see how that all connects?
Positive psychology.
Right? So she's so her intellection input has dominant. And so as she's telling me all I had to ask was, tell me the most energizing thing you've done in the last 30 days. And then I asked 2 levels of questions. I ask a question, and this is true when you're interviewing, by the way, if you're ever interviewing someone, ask a qualified question. Qualified question. Here's the qualifier. Most. I said, name the most energizing thing you've done in the last 30 days. When you're interviewing someone or you're wanting to find out where their truth is at, stick a qualifier on there. Gallup's research shows that your brain goes to the most honest answer and then comes back. Like it goes to the extreme. Name the most successful, the most energizing thing you've done in the last 30 days. Name the worst boss you ever had. Name the thing you hate to do more than anything else. Like, name the greatest success you've ever had. The most difficult, the most force your brain to more truth, okay? So I asked her a qualified question. I said, name the most energizing thing you've done in the last 30 days. Then I said, why did you pick it? I didn't even ask about I sort of asked about the class, but my question ends up being, what about the class did you pick the class? Like, why did you pick the class? And I would also say, why did you pick it as the most energizing? Because you could go even deeper if I wasn't trying to teach through this. I would often say, of all the things you could have picked in the last 30 days, what made this class stand out more than others? Does that make what? And Kate, is it just the chance that you're starting? What makes this course, the research course, stand out for you in the last 30 days?
Honestly, it's almost like applying individualization to myself because I'm finally realizing what makes me tick.
And so is the chance to do that. So Kate's pretty aware and has done strengths multiple times over the years. And so she's aware of that piece. You're going to find that the answer to that question for yourself is going to be kind of more like, it won't be as directly tied to themes. You'll hear like, I felt like it was a good expression of me. Taking this course expressed something that I felt I understood, but hadn't put into action. And you'll be like, oh, that's her individualization. I ask a qualifying question, most, best, worst, whatever. Then I ask why. And then I ask, why did you pick it? So when I'm interviewing people for jobs, when I'm interviewing for clients who are asking me to help hire, I will invariably say, tell me about the greatest professional collaboration you've ever had. Greatest is my qualifier. Then when they answer, I was like, why did you pick that? What makes that collaboration stand out? And then I answer, and I just stop talking. Because the first things out of their mouth will reflect what their brain thinks they need to have for a great collaboration. So when you ask a question, people quickly, they don't realize it. In under 15 seconds, the human brain can't possibly read into what you're saying fully. So it gives an honest answer. So I asked, tell me about the best professional collaboration. And then they say, you know what? I had this one boss this one time, and like I was able to set direction and I had a really good budget, and I'm not good with details, but Marcia was so good with details, and she did this and this and this. And it was in that moment of me spouting my story as to why I picked it. Even aside, 1, you'll hear my strengths finder themes, but 2, you'll hear all the things my brain thinks is the makes for the best collaboration. The why vets out my thinking. Does that make sense? Because when asked for my best, my favorite, my worst, my brain just fills it in and goes, here you go. Here it is. So then I've got that list. So then when I answer that way and Matt goes back and says, well, I asked Mike about his best collaboration, and he said he had a great boss that he worked with where unlimited budgets, he was able to create direction, didn't have to worry about details. And Matt goes, we have no money. Corporate sets the direction. And this is nothing but a detailed job. We suddenly realized he might have a great resume. He might even have the right strengths finder themes. But in his mind, here's the question, fit. This is where fit comes in. Gallup used to talk about your talents in the right place make a fit. But the right talents in the wrong place on the wrong day are the wrong talents. Some of you, I used to say when it comes to dating, the right person on the wrong day is the wrong person. Right? That's the way that works. And you could very well be the right person in the right job which makes the right fit for a window of time. And then one day it does not fit anymore. That's because one of you hopefully is growing. If you're growing and the organization that you're with is growing together, you will both grow. But you're going to find that if you're growing, but the organization's understanding of people on their team isn't, you will likely outgrow where you are. And so these questions, tell me the most qualified question, why did you pick it? And then, well, here's the reasons why. I will then that helps me understand what environment they're in and whether or not they're going to be a fit in the new environment. It's like comparing the best place for a plant. Must have sun, lots of water, deep soil. And then I go, okay, but people will just, what we do in jobs? We look at a resume. Yep, I worked in this place. I've had this experience. I've worked with this logistics system. I had 5 direct reports and I have the right degree. Ignoring the fact that there's going to be, it's remote leadership. It's much more complicated team, government regulations, way more paperwork. See how that works? And so Kate, in the midst of all this, Kate, you would say that intellect and input are dominant for you?
Yeah, and individualization.
Individualization, those 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kate has identified that. That doesn't mean that her empathy, connectedness aren't there. But I do want to tap into something Kate said. I'm now internalizing the fact that I'm dominant thinking, individualization, and input, despite what everyone has said to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the classic thing right now. We affirm each other in 2 things, what we see or what we receive. And so I receive, when you're with Kate, you know this. I still remember meeting with her in Coronado for a cup of coffee. Like, this, because when you talk to Kate, she won't look over your head and be distracted. She's going to sit there, focus on you, and be very relationally focused. And she's going to be very, very intuitive about your feelings. She's going to be able to reflect back to you what it is that she sees. So I'm going to go, oh, Kate, oh my goodness, you're so relational and you're so connected and you see the big picture. Man, that's definitely got to be dominant for you. Ignoring the fact that none of that questioning and understanding started in a vacuum. It started with motivation. Kate was motivated by her thinking and research and hunt for uniqueness to then ask the right connectedness, empathy questions. Don't assume that what you do is your dominance. What you think or feel first is your dominance. Think about which themes you think or feel with first. And here's the other thing. You will get affirmation in the world for things that are actually not even your strengths because we affirm effort. Oh, nobody works as hard as you do on improving your communication or your ability. Well, just speaking ability. Just so you know, really great communicators are usually working on their speaking ability, but you actually won't see it. We typically work on things that are just outside of our talent and strength because effort is so rewarded in especially Western culture. We're like, oh, you're such a hard worker. We ignore the fact that actually a lot of your talents happen invisibly. That's the whole point. So you could be affirmed on things that you actually don't love. And this is what Kate was talking about. Does that sound right, Kate?
Incredibly so.
And so you got to give yourself permission to go, yeah, just because the world sees that, what's really going on? What am I feeling and what am I thinking first? Questions or comments on some of that? I didn't know I was going to go into the questioning piece, but love to kind of hear some things. I can't really see the chat right now because of the way my windows are set up, but anything? Is this good? Should I do another one? Cool. Give me one more, Katie. It's okay. Nobody will hate you too much. Just pick one randomly.
Okay. Let's do. Gosh, I'm such a fairness and order person. So Matt.
Oh. Sorry.
Matt put his next. We also have Marsha's profile in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me Matt. What do you got, Matt? Talk to me.
Communication, connectedness, woo,
Okay.
context,
Yep.
and relator.
Okay. That's good. This is a different one. Okay.
Later.
Communication, connectedness. All right. Sweet. If you guys are willing to play live, for those of you who've played with strengths, anything interesting you see there? We got communication, connectedness, woo, context, relator. Anything jump out to anybody? Anything pique your curiosity when you see a profile like that?
Probably,
This is the kind of. Go ahead, Katie.
oh, I just think it's just so much, again, a lot of the relational influence here, but I'm so curious about the context and how that anchors sort of his relationships. And yeah.
That's great. It's great. Marcia?
Yeah, I look at that communication, and you've got that woo, and you've got that relator and that connectedness. So I would probably dig a little bit to see which one does, boil to the top in terms of. So.
Yep. I think in terms of these big balls, which is interesting. I think, as you're going to hear with me, like I do this thing where I think about it in terms of, I get these weird ideas. Like for me, I look at Matt's profile and I'm like, man, Matt has a great future as a grandpa. Right? Because like, it's like the thing. I mean, yes, Matt, you're super young, but like between here and there, like and can you guys see why? Like, what do you think it is? I mean, Brendan, you're pretty intuitive. Jessica, you're there. Like, what do you guys think it is? When I look at that, I go, man, Matt's going to make a really great grandpa. Like, what do you think that is that fires in my head?
Like, it seems like just seeing this, like Matt would carry a great conversation, and it would be really interesting, and it would be really connectedness. So we could touch on different things, and there'd be this thread through it all, and I'd feel known if we were in a one-on-one context,
Yep.
Yep. But those are the first few things.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
And someone in the chat just said storyteller, so I want to make sure you heard that. Exactly.
Like that's the whole thing. Is that in my mind? Both my grandfathers passed when I was really young, so I don't have context. But in mind, you climb up in Grandpa Matt's lap and say, "Grandpa, tell us about the pandemic of 2020." He's like, "Well, kids, just so you know, we had crappy Zoom back then before the days of holograms. And we used to have to go in these little boxes and talk to each other randomly. And there was 6 months and 8, or dear Lord, however months it is, that we couldn't eat in restaurants." "What, Grandpa? You didn't play with your friends?" "No, son." Like, and here's the thing. It's the storyteller component of communication with context while he's loving me as somebody he cares about, and I'm his. Does that make sense? Is that he understands me, understanding. He knows who I am fits into a bigger world. He reads my pain and knows how to make it feel less. He understands where I'm going in relation to where I've been. And if he's sitting there, and especially if I'm in one of his 5, I'm one of his 5. I'm ride or die for life with him. So I'm Matt, and I'm like, could you imagine Matt as your grandpa? Like, tell me that's not a great scenario. No offense, Matt. I know I'm stuck in this grandpa thing.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
And so in the end, but let's shift this a little bit. So again, for Matt, I'm just gonna ask you a question, Matt. How old are you right now?
28. 28.
Okay. When you were your first year of undergrad, what would you have said is the greatest job you thought you could ever have? Like, just take your first gut response. What was the first thing you said you would have said then?
Like 18 years old?
Yep, 18 years old.
I don't know if
When you're going to school, you're thinking about it. Like you're thinking about something. What kind of future are you thinking about? Where you're like, man, it'd be so great if I could.
honestly, I remember I had a history teacher right before I graduated high school. He was like, it was my US history teacher. He was like, you would make an amazing history teacher and you could coach basketball or sports, which I remember that was in the back of my mind. I remember he like affirmed me in that. And I was like, wow, I think I gave like a presentation in that class and had done super well in that class.
Yep.
And he said that. I think that was in the back of my mind, maybe.
Okay. You have a very smart teacher, really. Hey, if you guys look at this real quick, look at this. What did that history teacher say to him? Look at his profile. Hey, Matt, you could make a really great history teacher and maybe coach sports. Which themes are we talking about right now?
Relator.
We've got relator, Sean.
Yep.
And Brendan, what do you got?
I chuckled. I was on mute, but it was like, okay, communication. Good teachers have a little woo in them. History, context and connectedness, and then coaches. I know relators get more your top 5 personal friendship, but those one-on-one coaches. When the coach really speaks to you.
Totally.
As a player on a team, you're like, oh, I always remember this coach. He said this to me.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, he just hit all 5.
Yeah. Katie, did you have something?
Oh, no, I just said all 5.
All 5. Yeah. So the reason, what's funny to me ends up being this, so context, one of the dominant components of context is going to be history or law. Is that people with context are exceptionally good at history or law. They know how to take the past precedent. They like history. We like the background. We like the story. So when you said, well, I had this history teacher. So 1, the fact that he had a relationship with the teacher. 2, relators, they've expressed in Gallup's research on educational performance, they found that relators say their relationship to the teacher has more impact on their final grade than the subject matter does. The teachers they have relationship with, natural and individualization or relator, but especially relator. So not shocking. So Matt, in that moment, what has told me, I asked one question. What do you think you were thinking about was the greatest job ever in that window of time? And I picked before 25 because I wanted to see what kind of influences he's picking. Pre-25, we're really influenced by the people around us. Which influence has stood out? And so I'm asking Matt questions pre-25 in that moment about and you came up with a history teacher who suggested, and you can see your themes in there. And so we've got understanding with communication. We've got connectedness with connections. We've got woo, which is social and relational. Like, Matt, what do you think people would tell you are your dominant themes? And which ones do you think are your dominant themes?
People have always said communication is the top. And then I feel like it's more communication just floats to the top. People, I haven't heard any of the others. And then people are just like, oh, that's interesting. You have woo and relator.
Yeah.
But communication gets most of the attention, I'd say.
Yep. Just so you know, woo gets buried into communication a lot. People don't realize that, yes, it's communication, but it's winning communication often. And so you may find for yourself that woo communication ties in together in some ways. What would you say is dominant, though? Because when a problem crosses your desk or you meet someone for the first time, which 3 themes fire first?
Yeah, I think I'm realizing context is up there, because I always ask, like, well, what did you do in the past? Give me the past blueprints, essentially. I want to see, how you got to where you are now. So I think that's context. I think I'm realizing is probably dominant.
Okay.
Gosh. It could be connectedness. I don't know. I honestly am not sure. I do like. So. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Keep going. You do what?
I don't know, connectedness, I guess I do kind of go off of on tangents and like just follow the rabbit trail and end up being like, wow, how the heck did I even get here? You know, like I'm the guy who's like, oh, I have the thought while I'm in the middle of doing something and then
Yeah.
totally forget about what I was doing.
Yeah, it's connectedness with a little bit of adaptability ideation checked in. So here's the frame. So if I have Matt and if I was actually doing a real live one-on-one, if for a strengths finder one-on-one, I might pivot and be like, well, can I ask you some questions? And what I do is I ask questions and he says, yeah, Mike, sure, that'd be great. I'll anchor with context and then I'll ask him 4 varieties of a question. So Matt, when you meet someone for the first time and based on his relational themes, I pick meet someone for the first time. If he had intellection, strategic input, more like Kate, I probably would have said when a problem crosses your desk. But she also has relational, so it's kind of in between. But I would say, Matt, when you meet someone for the first time, if we assume context is your most dominant and you ask where they grew up, context, by the way, if you ask where someone grew up, that's a context question. That's kind of the anchoring context question. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Because they start from there and then go out. Does that sound right, Matt?
Yeah.
So if context is going to ask, where did you grow up? I said, well, after a person, you meet them for the first time and you ask, where are you from? And then I basically take the other 4 themes and stick a sentence on it. Actually kind of describe it. After you understand where they're from, Matt, do you want to understand who they are and what they do? Do you see if they know anyone you know? Do you try to make a friend of it and just be happy and perky? Do you think of if you have any actually, I would say shared friends is connectedness and relator, but think of like how you can make a connection with them versus people you know as a relationship. So once you figure out where they're from, Matt, do you try to understand them? Try to figure out if you have anything in common, make a friend, see if they're connected to your friends. Which comes next after where they're from?
It's probably understanding. I'll probably go with the, what was that like? Tell me more about that.
So he knows where they're from. He's like, cool. Tell me more about that. As they're telling you the story, do you say, that's really great, you should be really happy? Do you try to make connections to other things? Do you try to ask them deeper personal questions about the state of their relationships?
Sorry, one more time.
Yep. After you start from where they're from and you seek to understand, that's going to be your dominant pair.
Mm-hmm.
Do you try to connect that to other ideas? Do you just encourage them and be positive? Do you ask them deeper personal relational questions?
It's either connectedness or relator. I think both of them are going deeper though.
Exactly. They both are. One will go towards relationship. One is towards fascination. Now, based on our conversation in this moment, I heard you say, I go off on mental tangents. I'll take an idea and ask questions down. That's likely to be more connectedness first because it goes in all different directions.
Yeah.
You're looking at a dominant pair then of communication, woo, communication, woo, not woo, sorry. Communication, context, and connectedness being dominant, right? You end up kind of focused in on communication, context, connectedness. And so as a dominant pair with woo and relator kind of being backside. So so you're delivering it all with a great smile. You're delivering it all encouraging. But what's driving this is I want to understand. I want to not repeat mistakes. And I want to influence things in ways that matter. Communication, context, connectedness. But what we'll see is smiley, happy Matt who asks questions. And we go, he's just so positive, encouraging, ignoring the fact that your brain is desperate for precedent, that your brain is hungry to dive in and go, wait a minute, no. I actually want to solve problems and keep things going in the right direction. This is about messaging that moves. And I would work on that, Matt. I would make that the hook. That you're like, no. Don't confuse my desire to understand for being just directionless. No, I want to stay on track. What is the track that we're on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That's enlightening to think about. It's interesting. Yeah, woo and relator have gotten so much attention of that dynamic that, I haven't really considered the other 3 as dominant.
And so these moments for Kate, for Matt, for others, and again, I'm just going to kind of open it up for questions from here out, is that what I want you to see is that people take StrengthsFinder and go, I could be in PR. I could be a project manager. I could do this and this. No, you take the mix of the pieces together and you're like, okay, wait a minute. This is a values compass for me. And so when in my book, Extraordinary, that I wrote, I talked about talent, purpose, passion, as this is the identity part of the triangle. I need to do something on my book here. StrengthsFinder themes go in here. What you could do with them goes here, but things you really care about go here, but you need all three. So you could have strategic ideation as a StrengthsFinder talent. So strategic ideation, strategic problem solving, ideation, creative problem solving. What could you do with that? I'm like, well, a knife has a blade, a handle, and an edge. What could you do with a knife? You could cut things. Okay, great. So talent, strength, ideation is like the blade of a knife or the handle of a knife. To cut is the purpose of a knife. Strategic ideation, it's like problem solving. Like you could solve problems. You could solve problems one piece at a time. But problems for who? This is where your passion comes in. Because a knife, a scalpel, is completely different than a steak knife. It's still a knife. Purpose is the same. To cut what? You can use your profile well to get to the deeper levels of passion, but most people just stop at purpose. If you use your themes, it'll draw out, there's something inside of you. I get great satisfaction, you might say, when these problems are being solved. Matt, you have connectedness. Like, it's not just enough for you. It may not just be enough to understand and help solve and not repeat mistakes. You may want to do it for people who look different than you. Diversity matters a lot to connectedness. And so you're passionate. You're like, yes, I could work in an office where everyone looks exactly like me, or everyone looks a very specific way and does a very specific things, but I'm more alive and will sacrifice for people that I feel like are different, where we can make connections of understanding. And so for you, knowing that this goes beyond just purpose, what job should I have? What things should I do? This is what sets you apart in job interviews. Well, I have these StrengthsFinder themes. Well, what are you really good at? You know what I'm really good at? I'm really great at understanding where our team is at, keeping us on track, and making sure everyone's up to date. Communication and team cohesion is a specialty. If I'm Matt, if I'm stepping in and looking at that. I'm gonna look at the chat real quick because I want to see who else's profiles are in there. Like these are all the different pieces where I'm like, how do I take that? How do I pull that together? And if you look at other people's themes, let me see who else I've got here. Marsha, arranger, positivity, input, responsibility, relator. Arrangers are juggling things, right? Okay. Responsibility is juggling with great intention. But then you've got relator positivity. So you could say, oh, this is interesting. She's really, really good at details. She's really good at plans. But I tell you what, some people would say, do you have a plan or does the plan have you? Marsha's ability to make me feel like the plan is in my best interest is going to be huge. This is how her profile, her secret sauce set her apart. Like Marsha's in San Diego. Marsha and Katie both are coaches. If you're in San Diego looking for a StrengthsFinder coach, like I would tag on them, like both of them. They're Gallup certified. They're great at what they do. And so like, especially when you can have coffee in person, you really want to have a conversation, call Katie and Marsha. Like the reality is Marsha's going to help you understand the end and all the different variables that can go into it. But then she's going to go, but let's make it apply to your life. But what do you really want in your life? It's not going to be esoteric, big vision that doesn't really matter, but it's so fun to dream. No. Did you or did you not keep the promise? Does that sound right, Marsha?
Completely. So absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so what's good is that if you have people who know they want something, you can help them get to the end. You might need to partner with different things where they're like, I need to help them come up with a vision. Where they're like, I don't even know how to start my vision, because you may have to go, I have to work to help them pick through what they think they want to discover what they really want, Marcia.
Mhm.
Because for you, you will coach them best when they know where they want to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I also think what's really interesting is at first when I started coaching is I was very intimidated about the unknown. And then I realized, throw it at me. There's something in me
A
that
ranger.
can figure it out, right? I can figure it out. So
Yep. A ranger can juggle.
sometimes
It
get the
can move.
most intimidated you realize is really your strength. So it's
Yeah. I mean, and like Emily, you know, it's strategic, command, connectedness, relator significance. Strategic in the moments, removing roadblocks quickly. Command, which I have. Command is, I look at her profile. You've got command and significance. Command is saying, how do I lead well? Significance saying it, will I lead well in ways that they'll have a parade for me? And so it's going to be naturally focused on how do I really do this well? But then strategic connectedness is saying, what are the patterns and what are the problems? Patterns and problems. So that ties into the command and the significance. But then a relator, that's a group of 5 people. Emily, who's that team? Where's your 5 people? I would say don't lose track of the fact that the significance you want can't be separated out from the group of people. That relator piece, it needs those both pieces together. Also with strategic, I would say, man, solve the right problem. And so if I'm in an interview, if I'm having a conversation about and I'm going, you know what? I'm great at seeing the big picture and leading through problems in ways that will survive. See the big picture, lead through problems in ways that will last. Sound good? By the way, I'm recording all of this. So if you guys don't want it on here, let me know. But here's the other thing too. If you need to jump off at 11, I do not. I will go person to person and keep recording if you want. So if people have ones like, hey, Mike, hit mine, great. Because I just assume give you sound bites that you can use as you're talking about yourself. Some of you are job hunting. Some of you need to ask your bosses for promotions. Let me help. Let's do some of this. Sound good? Grace. Grace, we kind of did, yeah. Where's Grace? There she is. Just to kind of hit Grace again, individualization, achiever, input, restorative. Grace, which ones are dominant again? Remind me. We had this conversation. You're on mute, sorry. Let me unmute Grace.
I'm
Hi,
sorry.
Grace. It's okay.
Hi.
Yeah.
So those are sorted from 1
Yeah.
to 10, but
Yeah.
I have yet to do the homework. Yeah.
Give me top 5.
Top 5, individualization, achiever, input, restorative, and learner.
Okay. Yeah. And so even with a mix like that, you got individualization. Again, if you guys can see the chat in there, you know, it's the ability to understand the uniqueness of the resources that you can use to solve problems. And so when it comes to you solving problems, Grace, your ability to make me feel understood in how I'm unique, but you also understand the work it takes to solve my problem. That's a unique approach to things. And so especially, you know, which is why, like, I know you work in marketing, your ability to recognize 2 things, that communication, the understanding of communication is an art, but the delivery of communication is a science.
Mm-mm.
If you have relational themes that you're like, ooh, I see the world this way, but the action, it has to be delivered methodically, consistently, specific. And so your mix of, you know, my individualization, restorative, allow you to really go, wow, I can see people and the problems I'm trying to solve, but I also know this is the work that's required to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And so vision in reality ends up being pretty compelling. I'm really great at going, you know what? I see the vision. I'm not afraid of the challenges. I'm not afraid of the work. That's your secret sauce.
True.
Brendan, it's after Grace in the chat. I can see it now. Developer woo communication, empathy, positivity. Developers progress, incremental improvement, measurement. Brendan always leaves me a little better than he found me. Woo, he wins me over. Woo communication positivity is a common occurring triad in StrengthsFinder. It's not uncommon to find those 3 themes. I have them, Brendan has them. They kind of go together. Woo, positivity, communication. Then he has empathy though. So Brendan sees me, he understands me. He also feels these things from me, But then here's the magic sauce. And he says, that's great, Mike. I love you just the way you are. Now what? You know, Brendan, like that next step, if you could turn on that developer in you pushes me to go, there was a guy named Max Lucado who I used to read when I was in college. He was our author, and he had a great book called, and the subtitle of the book was, I think it was Just Like Jesus was the name of this book or something. He's a pastor in Texas or something. But the phrase of this book is, Jesus loves you just the way you are. And the inside was, but too much to let you stay that way. Loves you just the way you, and I remember thinking for developers, this is kind of how developers see me. They love me just the way I am, but a little bit too much to leave me that way. And I've always thought about that with Brendan, is that developer sees you. They accept you wherever you are. And developer says, great. Okay, but what's next? Next steps, let's grow. So Brendan, don't undersell that. Your ability to create growth using messaging and relationship, that's a sweet spot. Not understand, and so, but make sure you're in places that value your desire to grow, that value your desire to lead people. Sweet. Who else have I got in here? Abdullah's here. Justin. I'll hit Justin and then I'll do Abdullah's list here. So we've got Justin with learner, restorative, analytical, deliberative input. This is kind of a cheat because Justin and I hiked in Patagonia together. Well, I didn't hike. He was running Patagonia, by the way. We met literally on the backside of a mountain in Chile. And we just did one-on-ones last week. But when it comes to Justin, you've got learner, input, analytical. Okay, those are all thinking themes. But it's thinking with an interesting twist. He also has restorative and deliberative. So learner input is very excited about new information. But the analytical says it has to be the best information. And here's the other thing. It has to solve a human problem. Restorative is not just problem solving. At its core, with passion, restorative goes, am I going to solve a problem that really matters? They don't like things that don't attach to people. It's got to have a human impact on some level. And so for Justin, what's fascinating is he is the most relational deep thinker you're going to meet. We used to laugh. I saw his profile. We laugh at him. He was literally running the circuit by himself in Patagonia, meeting people as he would go. And I'm like, he has no woo relational themes, nothing. He had friends in multiple stops on the trail. And it's the human factor of the restorative that make him curious in his thinking. And Justin, you know, that's what I think. I mean, that's a good drop for you. Does that sound right?
No, that's right on.
It's exactly the thing. Abdullah coming in from Kabul. Thanks for making it in. I know the video's bad tonight, but adaptability, woo, relator, and empathy. And so one of Abdullah's strengths, we met in Kabul way back in 2014, worked together for a couple of years. It's the ability to, work in sales where it's the relationship, and he's got his 4 there. I can't remember his 5th, but I'm pretty sure it was like communication. It's this natural ability to win you. And so the woo with adaptability can talk to anybody. It doesn't matter where they're from. It's the ability to say, I don't care if you're the president or if you're a person begging on the street. When you meet Abdullah, he makes you feel like you have the greatest honor and he has the greatest respect for you. This is part of that charm. And what we find is that when you have empathy, Gallup found in sales, in some of their sales research, that when it comes to selling, business development, things like that, empathy or a high relational theme was critical in selling, because the person buying has to feel like you understand their problem. They have to feel like you get them. Abdullah, your ability to make me feel like you understand me, your ability to make me feel welcomed, makes me think that any suggestion you offer me then is a good idea. Because in effect, I buy my relationship with you before I buy the product. And so I think you do this well, but that's where I would lean into that. If you have relator, if you have empathy, just so you know, empathy, positivity, connectedness, they work very well in sales when you really believe in the product you're selling. Jessica, positivity, adaptability, connectedness, responsibility, woo. Jessica is like, there's this element, Jessica, that I really want. Like, I follow a whole bunch of weird people on Instagram. One of the things is I follow there's this woman. She was the first female captain of a major cruise ship for like Holland America. I think she's Captain Kate. Have you guys ever heard of her? And it's just basically you're learning about life on this giant ship. And there's this woman. I'm like, Jessica, I want Jessica like as the captain of a ship because like she knows exactly how to make sure we don't die. She's kind of keeping all with her responsibility. She's keeping all the pieces together, making sure we're all having a good time with constant an eye on the rudder of like, where's it going? So what that means though, is that Jessica initially is that you have harmony as well, that she says here, an arranger, which is also part of the organization of pieces. So when I think about talking about how would you describe it, it's the ability to see the big picture, to not lose sight of the goal, and then be able to respond well to a dynamic environment. The big picture, not losing, because that's the connectedness, not losing sight of the goal, responsibility, but then being able to shift and handle changes in a dynamic environment. That's the arranger harmony juggling that you can do. And by the way, people will love you by the time you're done. They're just gonna be naturally engaged to go, man, I like taking orders from her. This totally works. So the ability to go big picture, keep people tied in together, focused in, kind of not losing sight of the end, knowing how to be responsive and not stuck. That's going to be your sweet spots. Ask yourself what you don't want though, right? Adaptability, you got to reverse engineer your vision. If you have adaptability, or if you don't have, or you're high responsibility, and so you don't think vision, remember, your 5 greatest complaints are the seed of a great vision. What are the 5 things that bug you the most that you don't want to have happen? Complaint is the start of a great vision. Take the things you hate about your life right now, flip it on its head and say, how do I make these 5 things that I don't want to have happen real, and work backwards. Does that sound right, Jessica? Thank
You
you.
can write a book about that, Mike.
Oh, I'm sure there have been. I'm pretty sure there is. I think Jaggard's always saying that. Katie knows Jason Jaggard. Jaggard's always saying the seed of vision. Jenny, oh yeah, and Abdullah, we got your 5th one in there, ideation. That's your creativity, Abdullah. That ability to think outside the box. Woo, includer, communication, developer. And so we've got connectedness communication, which again, similar to Matt, is going to be about understanding, but understanding the patterns, understanding how the pieces pull together, understanding variety. And so and with includer, you're not going to want to just speak for people by themselves. You're going to want to speak for people who are being overlooked. And
Absolutely.
so for you, that could be like, in causal, but if you want to say to somebody, like if I'm a consultant and I need to hire you to consult on my PR, your ability to say, I can figure out who it is you're forgetting. You have fans out there that you don't know you have. Go find, here's how you find them. Because includer, this is your thing. If you have includer in your profile, you spot what I leave behind. This is what you sell. Katie, you have includer, right? Too? Do you have includer? No.
It's like 12. It's like 12 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody else on the phone have includer? I don't think so. But when it comes to includer, people think it's just a soft theme. It's all people and relational based. No, here's the deal. What you want to do is you want to step in with includer of going, you know what? Most people get so focused on majorities, they overlook things that could be valuable. My sweet spot is seeing what's valuable and giving you a plan to reach it. And that's the developer piece that ties into your includer. What's fascinating is if you're like me, not you, but like people in general, the thing I am best at giving advice for is the thing I struggle with the most myself. And so don't do the self-talk game of, well, I don't know what my plan is for myself. I'm on a coaching call with you. And I'm like, who cares? Like the research shows that human beings are way better at giving advice to other people than they are themselves.
Yeah.
And so there's an actual coaching methodology called the best friend principle. Look at your profile, imagine it's your best friend, and then give them advice. Same thing. Like Jenny, your ability, so I don't know if you do this or not, if you're like consulting or not, but you could. Like developers progress and pieces, like your ability to help a messaging, communications, PR, marketing team, anything that's message, and you can find the wedge, the unique thing. Your ability to find unique messaging that moves incrementally. That's the spot. And because that's communication, understanding, includer, it's emotional thermostat, woo, relational winning, connectedness, big picture. And then developer is the action. See how those work together?
Yeah. Sometimes I think I could be a consultant, like one day
Totally.
maybe.
Yeah. And because the ability to say, hey, what do you think about this? And this is where relational themes think they're resigned to being nice and friendly and working as a therapist, when the reality is marketing and business today and in the future is all about attention, and attention is all about emotion. I'm telling you, the relational will inherit the earth. And so when it comes to sales and business, this is the thing. Keep speaking. I'm the one you need to, because I'm a dashboard of understanding. I'm the one who can help you understand your people, your audience, or your message. Relational themes, this is what you do. Okay? Sound good?
All those are that's all very true. I totally see when people are being left out and forgotten. And
Yep.
yeah, I'm always like advocating for the people on the fringe.
Totally. Anna, who, by the way, if you ever see any graphics on my page in the last 6 weeks, Anna does those for me. She's my graphic designer out of Costa Rica. She's brilliant. I literally hand her half an email and I say, can you create something? And then she sends me middle of the night text. Thank you, Anna. Arranger, context, discipline, relator, restorative. So she takes my chaos. The arranger and discipline come together, right? Arranger is juggling to solve a problem. Discipline is creating a system. And so there's two levels happening here. The arranger is very responsive. The discipline is there's an order at which I do things. And so one of the things I've learned with her, she's like, Mike, I need deadlines. I need a timeline because my brain will work backwards. Give me the end and I will work back. And so it kind of works backwards that way. And then context, history, background. And so what this means is that if I give her the context, Anna, so you may find when you're working with other clients, tell me what you want them to feel. So that gives you an endpoint. Tell me what the feeling should be. Give me all kinds of data, what you're thinking, information, any way you can do it. And then you will be able to craft a system, and then tell me what problem you will solve. What's the focus at the end? Like, what do you want us to feel? The problem to be solved, restorative, and as much background information as you can. Those things together are then going to let you create a plan. But you may need a little bit of time. Ask questions. Your genius is the ability to translate chaos into something that solves a problem for us. So it's that mix of work and translation. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Gracias. So that's all I've got in the chat. Did I miss anybody, Katie, that had wanted to? Did you see anybody
I have a
else?
question, Mike.
Yeah, Marcia.
So, the new report with the full 34 and the
Yeah.
top 10. So, because
Yep.
you've been really focusing on the 5.
Right.
So, what do you do with that full report when you're looking at the 10 and bringing people?
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to the full 34, there's definitely value in it. If you have never done the full 34, it's interesting for you if you want to get your full list. What you can do is you can log back in. I think it's like $34 and it'll unlock the rest of your report. The basic exercise, by the way, is it'll give you a sequence report that it won't have the full descriptions. So you only get the big descriptions for your top 5. The next of them, you get the small description. You can look at the PDF that comes with the book and get more about each one if you want. But here's what we do is it's a basic exercise. You read down through the descriptions on the sequence report on a sheet, on a paper, PDF or whatever, and draw a line at the last one that sounds like you. You may find it's 6, you may find it's 10, you may find it's 13. Okay, draw a line. That's kind of where you stop pulling, because we really do pull from our top 10, top 13. We really do pull from all of them. But within that, you really want your dominant first and then the rest. Like I have significance and harmony at 6 and 7, which is kind of weird, with futuristic chucked in. So competition. So that's a top 10 for me. But then jump to the bottom of that document, start reading from 34, the descriptions, read up, and draw a line at the first time you hear something that sounds like you. You would think those lines will be the same, but they're not. It's odd. Read up from the bottom and draw a line when you hit the first one that sounds a little bit like you, and you'll be surprised. That will reveal to you the ones that are definitely nowhere for you. These are the ones that are nowhere in my mix. The rest are in there somewhere, and then there's the dominant ones. And so you're going to really need to partner in with people who are in those dominant themes that sound nothing like you. You should assume that they are really, truly like that they're way off your radar. You're colorblind to them. You really want to partner with people who can see the things you can't see. And so I use the sheet a little bit, but most people struggle to internalize their top 5 in a way I think is necessary, to the point where I almost don't even focus on it. So this has been some strengths finderage the last 8 weeks. Here's what I'm going to do though. I have talked to a friend of mine named Danny Kim. Danny Kim was the very first person I ever spoke to and taught Strengths Finder to many years ago now. We met at a flood in-service day way back in the day, like randomly. And he became my first intern, my first employee. He now is the head of culture and team for Raindrop, an agency in San Diego. And while half that team is kind of on furlough and he's basically off work, he is going to jump in with me over the next 4 weeks. And we are going to take this stuff, but also try to do, how do you do digital leadership? What does this mean? We're going to talk about both strengths, but how do you do remote leadership, and how do you deal with motivation and morale and yourself, and just all the things. And you don't even have to have a team as a leader, but it's going to be about leadership and kind of your self-focus, basically for the next 4 weeks. Same link, same time, if you're interested in still tagging in. We'll keep doing it for as many who come. So, but I'd love to have you guys participate. You have been amazing, core of you. I've been honored. I didn't realize anybody would come. And the 15 to 20 of you that have come every week has just been super encouraging. So thank you guys for doing this. I'd love to see you next week.
You will. Thank you, Mike. Really, your perspective and I've learned so much
Awesome.
listening to you. You just really add such a whole new lens to how I coach and the questions I ask, and the definitions of themes. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to Katie for keeping me organized, kind of keeping me on. Katie's been kind of like internal. Thumbs up to that. Thanks, Katie.
I like your wallpaper, by the way.
Nice, thank you. This is stickers. It's decals.
Decals.
Works. Yeah, I had to do it. I had to spruce up the space. Also, I just learned that Brendan and I are strengths twins. So that's cool.
That's interesting. That's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Jessica, thanks for braving the outdoors for us.
Yeah, sure.
It looks nice.
Yeah.
Last week it was Emily. She was carped outside. Yeah, thanks you guys. Appreciate it. By the way, I'll post this up. If you don't want me talking about your themes, let me know. I can trim it out. I can make a cut. But if you're okay, I just kind of post the no production into my YouTube channel. So you got to be on my YouTube channel to find it. But if you want to be able to go, Mike talks so fast, I need to be able to look back over it again. No problem. It's all there.
Definitely going to do that, Mike. Definitely going to rewatch it. Thanks.
Helpful.
Thanks. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Mike.
right. Have a great day, everybody. See you. Anna, we'll see you later.
Next week.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye,
Next
Mike.
week.
Bye.
Thanks for
Thanks,
your
Jenny.
time. Thanks for pouring into people.
My pleasure. Bye,
See you.
Anna. See you.
Bye bye.